Well, good morning, Southern Oregon. It's Alice Lema and Pete Belcastro. We're here with the Real Estate Show, KCMX News Radio 880 AM, Saturday morning, here to talk to you about Southern Oregon real estate and all the things that are happening in our market. What an interesting time. We're just coming out of the coronavirus, and the real estate market is really happening. What do you think, Pete?
Well, you hit that right on the nose, Alice. When this thing started, in the middle of March and the state shut down, I mean, you would just have thought that real estate is going to be like so many other businesses. It's just going to kind of go off the cliff. I talked this week, Alice, to a friend of mine, actually an old college friend of mine, who's actually a real estate broker in Florida. And Florida the real estate industry absolutely shut down in many states like that. They couldn't show, couldn't sell, couldn't come to the office, nothing. So we were very different here in our state. And I think what we saw and what we are seeing and experiencing is a tremendous demand going on with interest rates that are just historic. And we're going to talk about all of this today on our show because we've got great stats to share with people about what's really going on. And more than anything, I think is what do buyers and sellers need to know to maneuver themselves through this market right now here in the first part of June?
Because it's pretty bloody out there. If you're trying to buy something under $300,000, it's the equivalent of a paperwork fist fight.
and the reason is that there's less than 1 month supply of inventory in the $250,000 to $350,000 range. It is by far Southern Oregon's #1 price range. You know what I mean? It sells more in that $100,000 range than any other category. And there's nothing out there. You're right. It's like, what are we going to do?
Well, then you add to the mix all these renters that can now qualify to buy a home because the rates are 3 point something. And they were not part of the mix this time last year necessarily. No. And now you have just zillions and zillions of people, not zillions, I'm exaggerating, but a lot more buyers that want to purchase. Plus our investor clients are now super active.
Oh, you think they're coming back in? Well, you can remember that there was very little commercial activity going on in the county. Remember a few weeks ago, we had representatives talking about that, how just kind of wasn't happening. Well, this last week, I don't know about you, but I've just talked to people and everybody is saying businesses up, people are out moving, vacation rentals are being gobbled up and scheduled right now. Like people say they can't believe it, how much has changed again in a very short time. Real estate's right in the middle of it. We're going to talk about that more today.
Great. Well, we've got a break coming up and the stats are going to be interesting. Pete and I are going to chat more about what's going on in finer detail in Southern Oregon real estate. We're going to talk a little bit about hemp. We're going to talk a little bit about commercial. We're going to talk about getting you in and out of your real estate transaction like a smart consumer. So don't change that dial. We'll be right back after these messages. Well, welcome back, real estate fans. Alice Lema here with my co-worker, Pete Belcastro. We're both brokers here at John L. Scott in Southern Oregon. And we are here talking all things real estate on this Saturday morning. And we're so excited to bring you the latest and greatest because, the COVID really brought some interesting elements into our market, Pete. And now that we're coming out of it, I think people are really surprised at how enthusiastic people are to buy and sell right now. Although I think we could still use some more listings. Is that true?
Well, the market is, the demand here, Alice, to me, it has not gone down. And we're going to continue to have the demand from both our local people who are moving up and down the scale, and an influx from out-of-state people who are going to come in here and wanting to buy. The COVID thing, we haven't really got the full effects of it yet and how much. But as we talked about last week in our show, there's a lot of activity, pent-up demand, and it's being put out there. And the statistics are bearing it out. Remember, say for the month of May, for example, it just completed, sales were down about 40% from a year ago,
which is huge.
which is a lot. In fact, here, I've got it right here. In fact, in the 3-month period, okay, March, April, May, which is actually the big 3 months of the pandemic, sales dropped from 700 to 500 roughly in Jackson County. Well, that's sales. But what's happening is that pending sales are just skyrocketing. Jackson County, honest to God, last week, I've rarely seen this, had 112 properties go pending last week.
Wow,
That's
that's a
on top
lot.
of that's on top of 99 the week before. In 90, I think 92, I believe it was, and 98 the week before that. So you can see how steady that is and how many of these properties are coming off the market as a result of going pending, but they're not being replaced at the other end with new inventory. And that really is going to be our problem. I think, Alice, it's going to happen through June, may very well happen through July. What do you think? I don't see it changing too much because people are not moving as much because they don't know where to go or what to do.
Well, and also, you know, we lost our end of school year kind of forced timeline where a lot of people wait, whether they have kids or not, they're
Yeah.
waiting for that kind of here we go into summer thing. Well, so now we don't have that deadline anymore. People can kind of move whenever they want. And there's as much as 70% of the people that were sent to work at home are not coming back to their building. They're going to still work, but they're going to stay at home. So I think it's going to be quite a quandary for people to decide, are they going to buy something right now and sell the house they have? Or are they just going to go somewhere else? You know, part of what's happening in Silicon Valley and Seattle is those tech workers are starting to call not only people in Southern Oregon, but people in Florida and other parts of the United States that have a good tax structure. And they're thinking about moving out of Silicon Valley, Seattle, wherever they are, New York.
Well, and if they want to come here, we have, what's our biggest obstacle to that? Do you remember what it is?
We don't have enough houses to sell.
No.
That was a good answer, though, huh?
That's a good answer too. But on the other hand, if they bring new industry here, depending on what they want to do, we have issues of air pollution. You can't put stuff into the air here very much. And so that's where our industry and how we're going to handle that's going to be good. But you're right.
Well, I'm just talking about these workers are still working for Google, Facebook, fill in the blank. They're called remote tech workers. In fact, it was very interesting because on the news this morning, Savannah, Georgia, is advertising that they will give $2,000. Maybe I shouldn't say this in our real estate show, but it's a real estate oriented thing where Savannah, Georgia is offering $2,000 for the remote tech workers to go to Savannah, Georgia instead of somewhere else. And we think they should come here to Southern Oregon because they'd actually be closer to their original gig.
And we have wonderful high-speed internet here. And
we
so
have great
that also
internet
helps them,
here.
which is what they need. The other thing I found out was out in showing properties this last couple of weeks, out in the rural areas, the buyers, they're exactly what you said, exactly what you just described at them. But the issue is over cell service. And where do you have cell service? Because when you're out in the remote areas, a lot of times you don't have it.
Well, and do you know what that'll affect?
Because they all work from home, exactly what you said.
Right. And it affects your list price. If you don't have cell service and you don't have high-speed internet to your house, your price will go down. Your listing price will go down.
That is I would never have thought that would have been such a huge thing, but right, the people who are moving, they're working from home generally. They need to have meetings. They need to do Zoom things like we do, and they have to have good internet access. And so that's a whole other spurt.
So you made a prediction early on. You made a prediction. I don't know if you remember, Pete, but you said because we were trying to predict what was going to how the Corona was going to change our housing market, and you said people are going to want a home office. So guess what? Any house that has the 3-bedroom, 2-bath, or even the 2-bedroom and an extra room, even the renters are starting to go through Craigslist and they're looking, even tenants want a home office.
Even tenants want it now.
Even tenants do. And if you're buying a house, that's a huge deal. So you don't have to work on the kitchen table.
Well, I see, we talked about how much all this was going to change what we had done in the past, and we're definitely seeing it. And also remember, people who are at home, look at how busy Home Depot, Lowe's, Ace Hardware were. I mean, they had record Aprils and record Mays because so many people who were stuck at home were improving their properties. They were doing improvements. They were fixing this, doing that, fixing their yard, painting the house, whatever they were doing. It all increases the value of your property. So I'm really proud of people for doing that because they took that time and were able to do what we always want you to do is increase your value, make it better for yourself, create your wealth. And look how many people were doing this. So,
yeah.
On the other hand, now they're going to expect to get more money for their property when they go to sell it, right?
So I'm thinking if people are going to Home Depot and Lowe's to get home improvement items and we need more houses to sell, we should just hang out at Home Depot and Lowe's and ask people if they're going to sell their house. Are those posies for your front yard to make it, what do they call it, curb appeal? So we can have more curb appeal?
Well, it's true. But here we talked about the inventory because I don't want to make light of it because it is a serious problem in the market, okay? Again, Alice, if you are in the 0 to 250,000 range, okay, this is last month in Jackson County, there's a 1 month supply. It's a severe shortage of it, and 72% of those properties were sold in the first 30 days. That kind of says it all. Go up one, $250,000 to $350,000. Again, it's a 0.7 month supply. There just simply isn't any there. It's an extreme shortage, and 60% of those properties sold in the first 30 days. If they didn't sell in that category, they're either too high priced.
I'm going to bet it's because they're not financeable and they smell bad.
They're not financeable. They smell bad. They're not ready to go. Otherwise those things should be flying off the shelf. And like you, I've been involved with and I hate doing these, of multiple offers and bidding up some of these prices, and a lot of buyers do not want to do that. And so be very aware of that. If you go to $350,000 to $500,000, Alice, there's a 2 month supply. 37% of those houses sold in the first 30 days. Then if you go above 500,000, it really changes. Still, there's a lot of them. There's not a great deal of inventory, but there's just not a lot of sales generally in there. However,
but they are selling more than they were this time last year. And that is partly because people are sick of the house they live in. They don't want that tiny little whatever anymore.
Yeah. Last week, okay, in Jackson County, the #1 residential properties are residential rural and residential properties. One sold for $1.1 million, closed at $963,000. That was the highest price out on Grandview in Ashland. It was on the market 29 days.
Oh yeah, okay. That's up on the hill. So it was listed for over $1 million, and it sold for 900 something, but it was only on the market for 3 weeks. Is that what you're saying?
Right, 3 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Rare. So that inventory is starting to get sold finally.
Okay. And in Josephine County, 248 Grinnell Road closed at $1,050,000. It started at $1.3 million. It sold in 6 days.
Wow. So how many acres was that one in Josephine County? And was it on the river? You probably did.
Part of the reason it was 47 acres. It was a very 47 acres, very big place, 5-bedroom
which is interesting because usually land does not add a ton of value. People say, oh, well, if it's 100 acres, I'm going to pay a lot more. And it has to do with the kind of usability. We should do a show on that sometimes, like what kind of land you have and what it's really worth. Because it's the buildings that are usually valuable.
Mm-hmm. But it changes. And you look at these stats every week, and even in Klamath County had a good week. So they're selling all over the range.
And I would like to talk about Klamath County because I think that is the sleeper. There are some good deals up there. And some of my investors are starting to look up there because the ratio between what you pay for a building versus the rent you get is actually better up there. It pencils better up in Klamath County. So I think we might even start losing some of our folks from here to Klamath just because they can get better deals, whether they're investors or not.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. That the price per square foot is so much lower. The median price there is so much lower than here. They have a lot of, weak inventory, but like in anywhere, there is some fabulous places, and you're right, they are more affordable in terms of price than you see here. And you're right, I think it is the sleeper area, no question about that. There's a lot of activity there because of the affordability question.
And
And
it's a
remember,
nice, it's a really beautiful place. I think it does not have the airport and the hospital situation that we do in Jackson County. But you know, if you don't need that or you don't need it all the time, I think that's an alternative for people if they don't want to keep arm wrestling, you know, for houses down here, and they can, again, if they can take their job with them, you know, Klamath Falls has internet.
absolutely. No, I think that's all changing, and is exactly where we're going in the future. So you talked about that, you know, the median prices that we've been paying the last, since the pandemic have really not dropped a lot, Alice. Jackson County last week, 340,000 median price. Josephine, 345, Klamath, 207. So we're still getting some pretty good, you know, prices there are good.
And you know what's interesting? Jackson County and Josephine County average price for a house is still higher than the national average.
Yeah.
And I think that's really shocking when people come here from other places. They're really surprised at how much a house costs here.
Mm-hmm. You're right, depending on where they're coming from. But they also know coming in here that they're going to have to pay something because it's such a desirable area.
See, that's right.
And as long as that is, it brings a certain value to it.
Yep. If you want to live here, then you have to. Yeah. And if you already live here and you don't own something, you want to get on the stick right away, because even though the feds think, you know, they're going to keep these interest rates low, they kind of can do whatever they want when they want.
And we got a break coming up, and afterwards, let's talk about what those interest rates are doing to the market right now, because they are stunning and they're having a big effect. And for refinancing or just purchasing, now may be the most historic time maybe in our life right now.
So run, don't walk, and buy a house. We'll be right back with more real estate talk. Pete Belcastro and Alice Lema. Don't change that dial. Well, welcome back, real estate fans. Alice Lema here with Pete Belcastro. We're both brokers at Southern Oregon, John L. Scott, here in the Rogue Valley. And we're here talking about all kinds of interesting side effects that the coronavirus has had on our housing market here in Southern Oregon. And if you want to get some other interesting segments, we have 11 years almost of YouTube on the realestateoregon.com. So you can look for our YouTube over there. And in the meantime, Pete and I were just talking about some of the interest rates and the effect it's having on the locals and the effect it's having just on the market in general. We have some really shockingly low interest rates, people closing at just ridiculous, unheard of levels.
Well, if you're a veteran or you're interested in the USDA, you know, the rural development loans, Alice, 2.75% those are right now.
Wow.
If you have an existing VA loan, you can get it changed to 2.75% as a result of the pandemic. This is what's going on around.
They're doing that for veterans. They'll actually change it. Wow, that's amazing. And you know what? Our service people deserve that. That's wonderful.
2.75. Okay.
And you know, the service people don't have mortgage insurance.
Right. That's a wonderful thing. You know that. So what about beyond them at that 2.75 level? A 30-year conventional mortgage. And Guy Giles, from Mutual of Omaha Mortgage, one of our sponsors of our shows, he says it's amazing to him. They're right at that 3.1 to 3.2 range right now.
Are you talking about bedrooms and bathrooms?
No. I'm talking about just interest rates.
Interest rates. Okay.
3.1,
3.1 to 3.2. Because you said 3.1, 3.2. I thought.
I'm sorry. Yeah. So even because I refinanced my farm. That I bought last fall. I had a 4.625 rate,
which is still great.
Okay. I refinanced it. Just got it. You know what it is now?
What?
3.250. And Guy Giles said that is the lowest refinance he has ever seen. He's ever done.
So that's incredible. What was the payment difference?
Oh,
Like
I've got that
what
somewhere.
was
It's
your payment before?
hundreds of dollars. I don't have it in front of me.
But
It's not.
like $200,
Oh, more. It's more
$250?
than that. It's actually a little
Wow.
more than that. More than that.
Yeah.
But my point is that if you're in that range right now, you know, this may be the time. Yeah. And refinancing isn't for everybody. I don't want to say that it is, but if you have a point, I always heard if you have a point difference or more, you should seriously consider trying to refinance that because the savings you make are going to be considerable. And you're going to have to, you got to pay costs and closings and stuff. But geez, right now, it's quite, well, I'm thrilled.
Well, and I think, the 1 point rule to decide if you should refinance is a good rule. It's one I've used in the past. But lately, I find that in my own family circle, my relatives are refinancing, and they may not have a whole point difference, but the difference in their payment is enough that if they ever got laid off again, if they had some kind of car accident or something like that, all of a sudden it's a much more manageable situation every month. So it has to do with the monthly payment. So, you hear people talk about that 1 point rule, and then you say, oh, well, I can't refinance because it's not 1 point. Don't listen to that. Look at your own finance.
Right.
Talk to a lender and really kind of understand why you're doing the refi. Because a couple of my relatives did it just for kind of security in the future. If something else happens again, they can still make their mortgage. And they couldn't have at the other higher interest rate. And it was only $200 a month.
Well, that's exactly why I did it. I mean, I needed to get my payment lower, so if something happens as I age, I'm able to make that payment much easier with the income you have coming in than having to worry about it. So that's exactly why I did it.
Well, don't you feel like you sleep better? Don't you isn't that a less of a worry?
I can't believe how happy. I can't believe how much it changes your approach to everything that you do in your monthly world. When you're saving $300-400, that's a significant amount of money.
And if you're really smart, you'll keep that money and put it into savings. So you pretend like you're still making that higher mortgage.
Yeah.
You sock away that extra cash, and all of a sudden you have another down payment, and you can buy an investment. You can help one of your youngers. You can help one of your olders.
Yeah. Here's another interesting stat. Remember, we always talk about how many when agents open up lock boxes, tells you a lot about how much activity is taking place. Actually, people going into a property and looking at them. Mm-hmm. This is the May stat, Alice. You can see it here. The blue one over here is May of last year. 11,700 times those lock boxes were open, which is really a lot. I've never seen it hit 12,000, but 11,700 is a lot, pretty close to that. And this is what it was in May of this year. It's down, much like total sales, etc., down about 33%.
Yeah, because it looks like a 2/3, 1/3.
Yep, about 33% down exactly. And it corresponds, again, so similarly to the market overall in terms of sales and things like that. So, but again, still 7,000 during openings during a lockdown,
during a worldwide pandemic. So aren't you a little surprised? I'm a little surprised that we still had that much real estate activity, because when this all went down, you and I said, wow, this is going to be interesting. Are we not going to sell any houses? And then all of a sudden, that's all we did was work through the whole thing. We still had all of our protocols. It took a long time to get suited up, to get in, to get out, to wipe things down. I mean, it was a big deal, and we're still doing those protocols. But weren't you surprised at how busy it was?
Oh, well, when it started, we had there was so much activity from the winter and fall that when we stopped, there were tons of properties already in the pipeline closing. Remember, there were just bunches of them. So that kind of sustained
leftover
us
from
for
winter. You're talking about leftover from winter,
right? That were already pending. We're in escrow, and then we got past that, and then we started seeing the pending start rising. That people were buying, but they weren't being replaced. So we've gone now almost a year, not quite a year. So it was during the summer, last July, I think it was, when we first again noticed that the new listings were not keeping up at all with the pending sales and closed sales, and we were going to be in a shortage. It certainly
Mm-hmm.
backs it up when you look at the housing stats. You know, no inventory. We look at the different price ranges, no inventory in many of them, or less inventory. So that's really where we're at. Even though we have fabulous interest rates, until there's a larger supply to choose from, you know, it actually can slow the market down. You ever thought of that?
Well, and it also interferes with people's life movements. If you're getting transferred or you're having triplets unexpectedly or you're getting, you know, something happens and you need to change your address, it really makes it hard and frustrating and in some cases really scary because you can't take that next step. So we
Yeah.
really do want to encourage people, if you're listening or you're out there and you know somebody who has thought about moving, that they call us or they call somebody and have that conversation because it's very, very doable. And I think that's the part that caught everybody by surprise when the pandemic came, is that I think they underestimated how resilient and how adaptable just we were as agents and the market was to go ahead and continue processing people's life changes through real estate with the protocols. I think that's the part that
Mhm.
got underestimated. But then we just don't have enough houses to sell. So I just want people to be reassured that it is okay to put your house on the market. We know how to do it, especially now, because what are we in our second, third month? End
Yeah.
of our second
Yeah.
month,
It's the third month, really.
third
Or it's
month,
June.
beginning of the third month. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
June.
So
Yeah.
we kind of know how it goes. And some people are even having real open houses again, like open, come in and see my house again on the weekend.
Don't you have to make appointments to them, or you can just go in?
Well, there's a couple of agents that are just having open houses, and then there's
Okay.
like I saw some at John L. Scott. We're doing appointment kind of open houses. There's still a lot of us doing virtual, but it just
Hmm.
speaks to the adaptability of the agents and just the market in general. So, if you ever thought of moving, or you know somebody who thought of moving, just talk to us because it might be more doable than you realize.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the also what else happened during that March, April, May, that 3 month period that we just ended out of there? And what about prices? What do you think? Did they rise overall, or did they fall during that 3 month period? Would you say?
You know, in some price points, my buyers and I and my sellers
Okay.
experienced a little bit of softness, but that was kind of it. The prices were not plunging. You know, some people thought we're going to go into another financial tailspin and it's going to be a horrible recession.
Yeah.
And that might still happen, but what we just went through price wise, I didn't see a ton of changes.
Well, we overall during that period, prices rose about 6%,
They went
but
up.
they went up 6%, but it's very uneven across across the counties. For example, Ashland's prices are down. Is down 5% from a year ago.
So
Um,
did the more resilient markets like
yep,
Northwest
Northwest
Medford and
Medford up
Wet,
23
huh?
up Northwest Medford up 23%.
Northwest Medford. Yeah, Northwest Medford is a great little corridor.
Yeah,
I was just looking at some houses over there yesterday.
okay,
If you want to be owner occupied or you want some rentals, they just
okay,
repaved all the streets. They put a bunch of new sidewalks in over there.
okay. White City, Eagle Point, Gold Hill, Rogue River. They're all up double digits in prices
Well,
from
and
a
a
year
lot of
ago.
people were fighting over Gold Hill and Rogue River because they wanted to be out in the rural districts. And that's still in the hospital zone. Because if you work for the hospital, don't you have to be like 22 minutes away, but because of the
Uh-huh.
freeway, you could be in Gold
Yeah.
Hill.
Okay, so that's happening there. Let's see what else here. Jacksonville. All right, we're talking about
Jacksonville
Ashland
go
down.
down.
Of course it did. 8.7% price-wise from a year ago.
Wow,
So
that's
did
kind of a big drop.
West Medford was down. Central Point was down 1%. In East Medford,
I bet
actually
East Medford was the
East Medford
same.
actually rose. East Medford was up
Oh, it was? Well, how much was it up by?
4%.
Oh,
4%.
okay. See,
But
I would have predicted East Medford was kind of the stable. How about Central Point?
down 1% from a year ago.
Okay, so that's pretty
Uh,
stable. That's
yeah,
very interesting,
yeah.
isn't it?
But in terms of inventory, okay, so we're talking about that. But in terms of inventory, Ashland is down. This is from a year ago, down 24%. Phoenix down 33%. East Medford is down 36% in inventory from a year ago. White City's down 46%. Eagle Point down 40%, Shady Cove down 40%, and Jacksonville is down 55% in listings. There are only 18 listings in the Jacksonville area out of this thing.
Wow.
So what is that telling you? That just tells you that there's no pattern to this market.
Yeah.
And there's no real pattern except there's activity going on.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk
a lot of activity going on.
So we've got a break coming up here pretty quick, and we still have lots more interesting Southern Oregon real estate to talk about. So stay tuned. Pete Belcastro, Alice Lema, John L. Scott, Southern Oregon here talking to you about what the corona did or did not do to our housing market. So be right back. Well, welcome back to the Real Estate Show, folks. Pete Belcastro and I'm Alice Lema. We're the hosts of the weekly Real Estate Show here on KCMX News Radio 880. And we're also going to have another airing on Sunday now, Sunday nights at 6 p.m. Thanks to Pete for making that happen. But we're here talking about the numbers that just came out from May and the corona. And you know what we haven't talked about, Pete, is jobs. Because right now there's still a lot of money floating around, a lot of stimulus money. And a lot of us are kind of worried about month 5, 6, 7, what's going to happen in Southern Oregon and what's going to happen to real estate in the fall. What do you think?
Oh boy, you're going into the great unknown. I have no idea. I don't think we can even plan that far ahead. I think you can only look maybe no more than 30 days ahead because of these phases. So I really don't have an answer to that. I just think that it's going to continue. I don't think it's going to slow down, Alice. I really don't. I just think they're going to have demand. It's going to continue. Where it comes from and how strong it's going to be, I don't know. Remember, we're not going to have the tourists that we've had here, visitors who love it and fall in love with it. They're not going to be here in mass as they have been with so many events, canceled and things like that. So anything more than 30 days is really hard to predict, I think. But and until we get more inventory, we're still going to be in that buyer seller thing like this, and interest rates are out here as long as they stay low. What you have to do is you got to get a good real estate agent, and you got to be on top of it, and you got to be first in line to get these things. You have to be ready to go. You got to be pre-approved, all the letters you need to be first in line to get there in order to have a chance to get the property that you want.
Well, and in some price ranges, you're going to overpay, and you're going to be asked to make up a difference in a low appraisal. So some buyers are having to have a little pocket of cash on the side to pay $5,000 over, or to pay their own closing costs or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the questions in my mind for the inventory is if we have some businesses, if we have some furloughed folks that are homeowners now and they're kind of struggling along, that in 3 to 6 months, if they can't keep their house, that we're going to see a minor wave of possibly pre-foreclosure. Yeah, because in Oregon, it takes almost 3 years to process a foreclosure. So it's kind of a long thing. But we might see a few more short sales. We might see some people just bailing out of their house because they're scared and they're not sure about the future.
Mm-hmm. That's certainly possible. I don't want to minimize that, but hopefully we're going to know in the next few months as the employment figures change in Jackson, Josephine, Klamath counties. We're going to know if people are coming back to work into the marketplace, or are we still having a very high double-digit unemployment. That's going to make a big difference. And so remember, you can't get a loan if you don't have a job, right? And if you're in forbearance or other areas, you're not going to be able to get a loan. So all these programs that are out there, be very careful of what your aim is, because you can get stuck and then you can't get out of it. Can I just talk about rural properties for 1 second, Alice?
Yeah, we love talking about rural properties.
We love rural properties. I've shown a lot of them the last few weeks. In that period from March to May, in Jackson County, there were 124 rural properties sold. In Josephine County, there were 115. Look at the activity taking place in the rural areas. Their prices are also accordingly up 11% in Jackson County and up 8% in Josephine County. But they're selling across the board from 0 to 5 acres, 5 to 10, 10 and above. They're all selling, and they seem to be in pretty short supply as well as we're going around looking at these properties. Again, if they're priced right, man, they're going pretty quick. There's a whole bunch of agents who are showing these properties. I see them all the time. And when one comes on, there's probably, I swear, 10 showings. And they're going quickly. So you have to be ready, especially in some of these rural properties in that $400,000 or $500,000 range. They're really popular, 4 and 5 acres, things like that.
Well, and the payment, it's like you can actually make that payment if your interest rate is 3.4. Like you can have that 5 acres with the big house and the barn and all that stuff. So it just kind of was out of reach before because of the interest rates.
And conventional loans, you can put 3% down. I mean, that's less than FHA's 3.5%.
Yeah, I had somebody call me. We delivered an offer to somebody, and my seller called me and he goes, "This is a 5% conventional." And I go, "Yes." When did that happen? It's like, well, it's been a little while. You don't have to do 20% down anymore. And I think that's another kind of misunderstanding in the market, is that you can have a conventional mortgage with 5% down, and you still need a little higher score than to be in an FHA program, but they're awesome. Mm-hmm. Those conventional programs are wonderful, and 5% is not that much more to put down than 3.5%. It's a much better program, in my opinion.
And I have a young couple of clients, and they are going through trying to get some additional down payment or earnest money, you know, from RVAR, the Rogue Valley Association of Realtors program with Access.
Oh, the grant.
The grant program. And I know it seems so cumbersome. So I've told my clients, friends here, I go, I want you to be the test for me, to be an out. I want you to be the test for us to see, is it as big of a hassle as I hear people say? Or could you do it, and did you get it through okay? So I'll let you know exactly what they say as we go through this. But I think
brutal was the word I used last time, because I'm one of the, there's not that many agents that'll work with that grant program because it's hard. But you know, if you're willing to get in there and hang with the people, it is just fantastic. We had a disabled veteran and his wife. They were paying $900 a month rent. It took them 6 or 7 months to get through this. They ended up with a really cute 3-bedroom, 1-bath, financeable. Their payment was $1,100 a month with taxes. Mm-hmm. And the down payment was provided through the grant, and the closing costs came from the seller. They were into it for $1,000 of the inspections stuff.
Wow,
and now they're homeowners, and their children are living in a stable environment. They're not renters anymore. They're not getting, you know, knocked around because this landlord wants to sell or move in or whatever.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly what we're doing. And your people there, they got a lot of money to do that. I've seen people get up to $7,000 with different help and different programs.
That's a lot of money for a grant.
A lot of money.
Yeah, but it's a thing. It's just a lot of.
You got to be patient and go through it and be willing to do it. But if you are, the rewards at the other end can be good for you and help you get what your goal is, which is home ownership, which of course we want you to do.
Yeah, and if there's any agents listening, we need more agents to be involved in those programs, because it really is worthwhile. You're making a difference in humanity, and I'm not just saying that to be buttery. Yeah.
No, you're absolutely true. But we'll see what happens. You know, this next week is going to be another. You know, school is now over. The online is over, Alice. So people, the summer vacation, if it was a normal week, we'd be there. You know, be starting summer vacation this week. So we'll see if it changes the market. We'll see if tourists are showing up. We'll see if there's more inventory. It's all going to kind of play out here in the next few weeks of what type of summer we're going to have.
Well, and you know, you can consider using your vacation time to work with a realtor, get your house ready to put it on the market. And let's make everybody happy. We can bring in a new person for your place, and then you can go on to the next place. And yeah, because that's what we need. We need people who are willing to move right now.
And that is probably the biggest key, you know, and for different reasons.
And it's all price points. It's not just the little stuff. It's the big stuff too. Yeah.
It's just so fascinating. It's going to be fascinating to watch it unfold with you all in the next few weeks.
Yep. Well, another great show, Pete. It's always so fun when we get to do this together.
Yeah.
So we'll see you next week, folks. Have a great Southern Oregon weekend and catch us tomorrow at 6 o'clock, next week at 10 o'clock. Bye.